A few days ago, Bloober Team CEO and the creative lead, Piotr Babieno, sat down with the Rolling Stone magazine for a short interview. And of course, the topic of Silent Hill 2 Remake was like the main focus, so let's go through this article in sections.
You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did.
Firstly, the Rolling Stone doesn't hold back with this intro paragraph, just listen to this. For years, the Silent Hill franchise has withered while developer Konami made imprudent efforts to dump the legendary horror IP into bad movie schlock and slot machines. So, fans treated the announcement that Polish studio Bloober Team would helm the remake of 2001's franchise peak Silent Hill 2 with the sputtering disbelief. Bloober, the horror studio notorious for its lackluster interpretation of mental illness in games, remaking one of the most legendary psychological horror games of all time. The company's CEO and creative lead Piotr Babieno tells Rolling Stone that he's heard the criticism and is acquainted with the trouble it takes to reimagine a game that fans say is untouchable. I mean, at least they didn't just needlessly glaze Bloober Team here. I think going in with the realistic approach, mentioning the fans' trepidation of Bloober Team and their questionable at best track record, it reassures me that this might not just be a fluff piece for good PR, you know? But I'm curious, what does Babieno mean by he's acquainted to the trouble it takes to reimagine a game that fans say is untouchable? To my knowledge, this is their first stab at a remake. Like, if Capcom said this, we'd be like, yeah, cool, because you've done it how many times now successfully? But Bloober Team haven't released anything but walking simulators in their many various forms. But let us read on. Bloober Team seems to understand that, instead of trying to surpass impossible expectations, it's more efficient to access the mood that helps set them. Babieno wouldn't necessarily call his team's game a remake, but more a romantic vision of the game from more than 20 years ago. This nostalgic approach could be especially beneficial for publisher Konami, whose unsatisfying new Silent Hill installments, like the free-to-play 2024 first-person horror title The Short Message, has left some fans discouraged. But in its interpretation of Silent Hill 2, Bloober offers melancholy hope. Okay, now we're distancing ourselves from the word remake, really? And now it's just a romantic vision, is it? Okay. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about here? Can we just cast our minds back to the earlier promotional material? I mean, am I crazy? And I heard a lot about this game being as faithful to the original as possible, even though we know it wasn't going to be because lots of obvious changes and creative liberties, shall we say, have already been taken. The camera angle, the combat, Maria's modesty adjustments to her outfit, among other curious character redesign choices. So we're not really getting a remake, we're getting Bloober Team's wet fever dream version of the game for, of course, the fabled and mysterious modern audiences, which doesn't exist. Bloober Team don't have ideas, they have vibes. Whimsical, nostalgic memories of getting their first horror boners over Silent Hill 2, which, to be fair, I can relate to. When I was a young, handsome lad playing Silent Hill 2 for the first time back in 2001, I definitely had my entire view of what horror gaming is completely changed. So I get their passion for the game, but that didn't really, at least in my opinion, translate to them being able to make really good horror games themselves. Being a fan of Silent Hill 2 doesn't necessarily mean you're equipped to make a Silent Hill game, much less remake Silent Hill 2. Babieno is quick to mention that the Silent Hill 2 remake is like fresh paint for Bloober as developers. Until now, the studio had been tied to strained psychological horror and slow-paced environmental storytelling. You'll find evidence of these things in the studio's landmark games like 2016's Layer of Fear and 2021's The Medium. Of course, both of which are trash. But Babieno says Bloober is already approaching their games, including the mysterious new IP called Project C, differently. Oh, pull the other one, Bloober, it's got bells on. This was your choice to make this kind of game. Nobody had a gun to your head and say, just copy PT forever. At any point, they could have gone, our games aren't very interesting, are they? Essentially, they're just the spooky haunted house ride at the carnival. Maybe we should have more mechanics and ways to engage multiple playthroughs, perhaps. But okay, at least they're finally realizing their previous games are extremely lacking in the actual game part. So that's at least a start. I've made this point before, but I really don't like how Bloober's first attempt at a competent combat model, both ranged and melee, along with the over-the-shoulder third-person gameplay, is when they're remaking one of gaming's greatest achievements ever. Why couldn't they get a studio who are tried and tested to make this? because Konami thought Bloober had the passion. But passion isn't always the talent or requisite ability needed to pull off such a task. You only get one chance to remake this game. Internally, we're calling this Bloober 3.0, he says. I believe that Bloober today is a completely different team than 3 years ago. He notes that when Bloober began working on Layers of Fear, the game that helped establish them as a studio, its team was made up of around 10 people. In 2024, Bloober has over 250 people on its staff. In this sense, Babiano says that Bloober's Silent Hill 2 will function as a culmination of my work, but at the same time, a gateway to the new. Again, a gateway. A fucking gateway. Silent Hill 2 shouldn't be the gateway drug for you to go on and make better things. This should be your magnum opus. Life is too short, and the process of creating games, I would say, is too long to make games that don't feel significant, Babiano says. We want to create games that we'd like to play ourselves, and games that will be very important to our audience. Whoa, whoa, whoa there. Did our boy Babiano just admit that he still hasn't made a game that even he wants to play yet? And you know what? I can't blame them either, because they are hard to get through. You need tons of coffee and at least 12 hours sleep the night before for the best chance of fighting the narcolepsy that their games induce. They're fucking snooze fests. Bloober hasn't had an easy metamorphosis. It's been facing the challenge every studio encounters when trying to innovate a beloved franchise. It's competing with fans' sugary memories. Okay, maybe they are glazing Bloober Team here, and maybe this is a fluff piece. Let's just say the development has been a daunting journey of balancing preservation and innovation, Babiano says. He goes on to say how he's aware that fans are basically picking apart anything they put out and scrutinizing it very intensely. I mean, surely that was to be expected. If this was, say, Capcom remaking it, with the success they've had on their own RE remakes, we wouldn't really have to shit our britches too hard, would we? We would all feel just a little bit safer in their wonderful Japanese hands. But with Bloober, it's like, oh, you better not fuck this up. I've read a lot of books from Stephen King, from Dostoevsky. I've watched a lot of movies by Lynch, Fincher, Kieslowski, Babiano says. Games weren't the medium that made me feel like you could go really deep into someone's psychology. That was before he witnessed Silent Hill 2. He was fascinated by the game's symbolism, things like the dense fog that blurs the boundaries between hell and reality, or masks the hardware limitations. And basically, it's changed my life, Babiano says. Despite technological progress in video games, he continues, so many of us remember visiting the town of Silent Hill as one of the most important points in our lives. Bloober Team takes pride in having an open dialogue with Silent Hill 2's original creators at Konami throughout the remake's creation. Because of those conversations, says Babiano, we have found a great balance of what we and our partner have in mind. But it took a long time to get there, with a lot of creative discussions and hard work, but we're very happy with the result. I am dreaming that gamers will trust us, Babiano says. But I realize that trust is earned through actions, not through words. And that's why we have a policy of not commenting on the specifics of the game and raising hopes. We want to show our ambitions through our work, so we can't ask for anything more than give us a chance. They just want that one shot. That one shot that could just change it all. We will certainly see if the proof is in the pudding. But Bloober Team, listen, I really do hope you somehow manage to rise like the phoenix from the ashes of your terrible previous games. I really do. I've shown my support with my money, getting both the deluxe edition pre-ordered on Steam, and I've bought James's jacket from the Konami store. And I am clowning on you guys a little bit, I know. But I think that's kind of like almost a coping strategy at this point. What I'm actually feeling is pretty worried that my favorite game will get a remake that just puts the nail in Silent Hill's coffin. So I really want this to be great for everyone's sake. We tried to make all possible fans happy, but at the same time to be very faithful to ourselves, Babiano says. Ultimately, fans might not anticipate every change Bloober decided to implement in its remake, but Babiano says, I really hope that when people play this game for the first time, they will understand that the choices we made were the best possible. There will certainly be interesting discourse around this game when it comes out. Provided that it's at least a good game at its core, there will be people who love it, and there'll be those who cannot accept any changes to Silent Hill 2 and will hate it. There will be modders making all sorts of shit for it for the PC version, which I personally can't wait to see. Imagine an OG camera and combat mod, and doing something to Maria's outfit, perhaps. So there's plenty to look forward to. And this must be a really stressful time for Bloober, I am aware of that. The reputation that they score or lose after this game really will set the trajectory for their career going forward. I'm quietly confident that it's going to be at least okay. I really wish we had more material to go over, but I'm only going to cover things on this game that are worth talking about, and this one was borderline. But that's it, that's all we got today. So please like the video for me guys, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see ya when I'm looking at ya. Peace.